Welcome, Per Larshans. You are Director of Sustainability and Public Affairs at Larshans. Per, you have more than 30 years of experience of working with sustainability management in several different positions, but you started your career in a family-owned SME company in the food industry. And now you are at Larshans, which is also a family company, but perhaps a bit larger, operating in 4 countries with recycling. And you see a potential for a world market for reversed chemical engineering with recycling from different waste streams. But so from your perspective, is it possible to create a circular economy for real, where everything is in circulation? Or
we must. If we can't succeed with that, we will have huge problem with overshooting our planetary boundaries. So there is not an option. And of course, the more we see the crisis emerge in society, the more the policymakers will listen and put the right policies in place. And the challenge today is the policies. Everybody talk about circularity. Everybody wants it. But who going to start? It will not happen by itself. Someone needs to put the demand that I need to have recycled material, or I need to have the right conditions. And many of the things that we are developing is even banned to be used in Europe. And I will talk about one specific element in my speech.
Before we give you the stage, I would also like to acknowledge that we have the next generation leaders here in the room. We have a gang from the London Business Schools and the MBA Masters of Finance program. Where are you? There you are. Oh, you are many of you. They are listening into your speech today, Per. So I will be happy to hear your talk. Take it away.
Thank you so much. And since 2019, I had the honor to give speeches for London Business School, and we are started here with a tour in one of our city hubs, working on the recycling perspective, plastics, steel, and paper. So I rushed here to be able to also take the speech here from stage, and of course took my friends with me. The circular food value chain. Yes, I worked for the food value chain before, for a food company, that's correct. So the question is, what has Larshans to do with the food value chain? Aren't we a waste management company? Yes, we are today. But an insight is that in a perfect circular economy, there is no waste. When finally the politicians has understood that what they need to do, we will not exist with our current business models. So that's why we understood we need to transform. Some of the things, and I will come back to that, as I said, can't be used today, even if we have fantastic innovations in place, because the policies are not there. So if you're going to influence European policy, what you do, you need to be bigger in Europe. So therefore, even if we operate just in 4 countries, we need to engage on a global level. And that's for opening up business for the future. So besides the work at Larshans, I'm also member of the board of Water Europe. That's for our engagements when it comes to especially phosphorus and argon. The second part is that I'm globally chairman for the International Chamber of Commerce, work on circular economy in Paris. Why? Because we see that free trade is very important. Free trade of secondary resources is almost impossible. Something called the Basel Convention that tries to make it stricter and stricter all the time. And the third one is I'm also president for EURIC, the recycling organization in Europe, and for the special branch of construction and demolition. Why? I will talk about today about something called the 10 billion challenge. And the question is, what is the 10 billion challenge? Well, we know in 2050 that we're going to be 10 billion people on the planet. 70% will live in cities. That will put a huge pressure on the society. We need to make sure that they have food, but they also need to build those future cities. And of course, for us as a company, we need to understand where we can contribute, both in the construction sector and in the food value chain. My focus on this speech will be on the food value chain and how we are part of that in the future. Yes, the future will be dependent if we succeed to not overshoot our planetary boundaries. My first meeting with the planetary boundaries was in 2009. I had then put the first carbon labeling scheme on food on the market, and I had a telephone call from COP15, the failure COP in Copenhagen 2009. Please, can you come down and do a speech? Maybe it was my fault. I don't know why they didn't succeed. Anyhow, I had a telephone call. Please, can you come down and do a speech? Yes, of course. I love to do speeches. How long can I speak? 1 minute. 1 minute? Yes, it's you, it's Tony Blair and Gro Harlem Brundtland. Okay, I'll take my 1 minute. Another person also giving the opportunity to give 1 minute speech was Professor Johan Rockström, announcing the non-planetary boundaries. So of course I understood the importance of this going forward. Today in 2023, we see that this is really now getting to hurt us in many perspectives. It's not just the climate dimension, as you understand. And for Ragn-Sells in 2015, when we started to this insight, we also took the planetary boundaries as part of our way of doing future business development. What are our future? Ragn-Sells is a company. 1881, started transporting goods and people with horses. Still a family-owned, third generation. The fourth generation has started work in the company, and the long-term perspective is very important. In the 1960s, we transformed from transport company to become a waste management company. Today, we are a recycler in today's linear economy. But tomorrow, we become a raw material supplier and detoxifier with urban flow as our source. One example is our potassium factory that we have now been set up in Stockholm, the first one, and I will come back to that. The question is now, do we have a problem with waste? This is the amount of waste we generate per capita in Sweden. Is this a problem? You don't dare to answer. The thing is that we have much more that we are taking up from our mines or from the ecosystem. So 60 tons per capita we mine every year to produce the GDP. Policymakers today, they are focusing on, we need to minimize the waste. But to be honest, there's no CO2 emissions in the waste. It's the production that are based on here. There we have the problem. There we have the problem with our planetary boundaries. So we advocate to have a shift from a waste focus to a resource focus. When we understood that we need to transform, and we need to develop new solutions, we decided to put this model in front of us. Every innovation that we develop needs to be based on 3 principles. First, we need to make sure that we decontaminate, loop out unwanted things. Secondly, we need to make sure that we maximize the return of the resources so we can reduce the need of virgin production. And of course, we should make sure that we doesn't put the hindrances to future generations. Deal with the problem now. So these are principles that we use in our business development, in our research, and our way how we sell companies. We doesn't sell that many companies, or how we buy companies. Now we come back to the core of what I'm going to talk about today, and that's the food value chain. And if we see now 2023 and the update of the planetary boundaries or the planetary challenges, we have 4 areas or 5 areas that are really affected directly when it comes to the food value chain. We, of course, has pinpointed 2 things that we can make a difference. In 1881, we already started with this. We transported latrines from the inner city of Stockholm to the surrounding of outside of Stockholm to the farmlands, bringing back phosphorus and nitrogen to the farms. Now we will do this on a global level. That's the potential, bringing back nutrients. So it means that we have the potential with partners, with countries, with society to make sure that we can have a sustainable food value chain in the future. And especially phosphorus and nitrogen are the 2 things that are destroying our possibility to live on the planet the way we manage today. Without phosphorus, there is no life. Without phosphorus in our food production, we will reduce the food production globally with 50%. The nitrogen management that we have today is that we're using 3% of the world's energy to produce current nitrogen fertilizer. At the same time as we are emitting it back into the environment. This is a picture from 2018, because the dream is, of course, to become the example in UN, and we became the example in 2018 for our phosphorus innovation. So suddenly, countries started to hear that there is a solution. And where do we pick the phosphorus from? Well, it's something that runs under our feet. It's the sewage. So we have developed a model, a principle, and now building a factory. They're going to produce a high-quality phosphorus from the sewage sludge In 2018, we became the example at the high-level political forum, and as a consequence, Germany, that just has put the legislation in place to have a phosphorus demand, we had a company there contacted us and said, we would like to do business with you. So from 2018, we have also developed just not the phosphorus, we have developed a solution for potassium and also for Larshans in a special daughter company named Easy Mining. The problem is, if I'm going to sell the phosphorus innovation, does anyone understand what it is? Who are you going to sell it to? So we try to sell it to the wastewater treatment plant. The problem is that the wastewater treatment plant, their obligation is not to produce resources. Their obligation is to make bad things less bad. Therefore, on a global level, we advocate for how today's wastewater treatment plant can become the resource plants of tomorrow, producing water for agriculture industry, producing nutrients, phosphorus and nitrogen, producing much more biogas, much more energy, and of course make sure that we don't decontaminate, that we don't spread toxin. I will come back to the innovations, but a very good example that I think we are on the right track is from the 1st of March this year when we became the EU Commission's example in Nairobi at UNEA 6, United Nations Environmental Programme's General Assembly. So we became the example from Europe for creating water resilience. So hopefully we will start to change legislation going forward. Detoxification is important. And one element I think will be on each and every person's lips in the future. Anyone know what that can be? 4 letters. PFAS. In history it was DDT, PCB, but in the future we'll talk about PFAS. So we have now done the first installation in Flanders when it comes to removing PFAS. And Flanders is the region in Europe that has the highest demand of eliminating PFAS in the water. Why? Because they had a 3M factory. So the whole areas in Flanders is polluted with PFAS. And it brings consequences for the society, for the people. And if the people get hurt, do they want to vote on the politicians that doesn't do anything? No. So of course the consequence is that they will need to do something. So here we have the first strict regulation. You need to remove it. Now we come to nitrogen and phosphorus. And of course, these are the key things for us in the future. Detoxification is one part. The second part is to produce these valuable resources. And our nitrogen solution is that we take nitrogen directly from the water and directly produce the nitrogen fertilizers. And the researchers, global researchers on nitrogen, has named our innovation as white ammonia, meaning that we are not taking it from the atmosphere, we're taking it from where it is a problem and create the resource. The first installation was done here in Stockholm. We moved it to Copenhagen, and now we have several interests around Europe that are asking for our innovation. We already have tried it. We know that the nitrogen is perfect to be used by the farmers, so it works. And of course, this will be a dramatic change when it comes to reduction of carbon emissions. One of the big challenges when we talk about nitrogen in the future is, of course, that today's wastewater treatment plants will become the biggest emitter of laughing gas emissions in the future if we don't start to take away the nitrogen. So I go very technical here now, so I will skip the detail. But if we don't start to recirculate the nitrogen, we will cause huge problems. So it's a must. The problem is still the wastewater treatment plant doesn't want to produce resources. So we need to have this mind shift being made. The phosphorus innovation. Here we are about to start to build the first phosphorus factory in Germany. The problem is we can't sell the phosphorus in Europe yet. But I will come back to that. We have a solution on that one as well. And the example here is that we have not just been recognized by European Commission. Even the existing European presidency decided to use our model when it comes to PFAS, nitrogen and phosphorus, also when they had the big water day in the 12th of March. And I met even the Minister of Climate from Sweden and handed over the brochures. And she said, please, I want them. Yes, if I can take a picture with you. And she even posted on her own LinkedIn. So even the ministers, I think, like our solutions. But I don't want them to like. I want them to put legislation in place so we make this shift being happening. Another example where we collect phosphorus is from fish poo, fish sludge. So we have now a solution in place where we collect fish poo in the ocean. We transport it with 4 boats to biogas production. And the next step is to develop solutions to also collect the nitrogen and the phosphorus. And the amount of energy that it can produce have the same amount of 600,000 households in Sweden. So a huge amount of energy that today is just emitted out to the ocean. Here, this is the future. We need to put things in place so we can make sure that the people get enough with food. I've just covered now the food value chain and the importance going forward. The consequence, if we don't do this, will be social stress, will be a huge problem for the society. But we have a solution in place. And I know that my time is running out, but I will give you a last movie, how we are now making sure that we can have the market for our phosphorus, and it's not in Europe. Please roll the film.
Our mission at the Friesen Group of companies is helping agriculture thrive in our communities. For the past 70 years, we've been driven by our values of hard work, high standards, honesty, and harmony to make this happen. But what about the future? Here in Canada, we are fortunate to have an abundance of natural resources, mountains, land, trees, fresh air, clean water, and people who care about the environment. As a company involved in the food chain, we specifically look at ways to ensure that animals are raised in a healthy environment and fed in a safe and sustainable manner. To be sustainable, we must look at ways to engage in the circular nutrient economy. The easy mining process, ash to phos, answers the question of how to do this with phosphorus, a key nutrient for plants, animals, and people. We know that mined phosphorus is a limited resource, and the recovery and recycling of nutrients is a key element in sustainable agricultural production. Replacing mined phosphorus with recycled phosphorus in North America is the first step, and the next step is to expand the adoption of the ash to phos technology here in Canada as well. Working together with Easy Mining to create a cleaner, healthier, and sustainable planet will help us accomplish our mission to safely feed our growing communities.
Interested to participate in a 10 billion challenge? Google in 10billionchallenge.org or .com and join up, because we can't do this by ourselves. We need more on the board playing. Thank you so much.
Right.